Hello and welcome to another World of Warcraft Classic Profession gold making video. Today we are covering fishing and how you can potentially get rich just by fishing up some fish. Fishing is a great profession to have simply because it can be picked up by anyone and doesn't take up a primary profession slot. It is also great to at least know about these fishing spots, seeing as gold is needed and also hard to come by in Classic. First of all, people need roughly 100 gold to get their mount at level 40 and 1000 gold to get their mount at level 60. Now in the beginning, having farms where you can vend the trash items for pure gold per hour might have more value and at least give a steady gold income, but those farming spots might also be severely overpopulated, so if all the spots you know of seem overpopulated, you have the option to fish. And whenever raids open up, or even before raids open up, people will need different fish to make oils, potions, and some even for visual effect. Some fish are also used in food, which gives stat buffs, so basically there are a lot of reasons why fish sells well on the market. So without further ado, let's go through a couple of fish you can farm for, what they are used for, and where you can fish them. I will rank them from worst to best in terms of potential gold per hour, judged by the prices on private servers and supply versus demand, as I remember it back in vanilla. Number 1 is the winter squid. This is fished up in zones like Swamp of Sorrows, Blasted Lands, Tanaris, Thousand Needles, and Eastern Kingdoms. This is also a big controversy of vanilla, as it was apparently only able to be fished up half of the year, usually from October to March if I remember correctly. It had the name Winter Squid, which maybe makes you think it would be fished up in zones like Winter Spring, but the name actually refers to the part of the year it could be fished up. This item is used for cooking the grilled squid, which increases your agility, which can be used by rogues, hunters, or even enhancement shamans in raids. We're not sure how this fish will work in Classic just yet, or if it will even be available, but I chose to add it since it might be a very unknown fish, and therefore whoever decides to actually fish for this might be able to control the entire market for it. Number 2 is the raw Firefin Snapper. This is most commonly fished up in Moonglade, Eastern Plaguelands, Blasted Lands, Feralis, and Ungor Crater. This is used to make the Nightfin soup, which is food that a lot of casters and healers use in raid scenarios, because it gives you a buff that restores 8 mana per 5 seconds for 10 minutes. Once again, this might be a less popular fish to specifically fish for, and people who find this fish might actually vendor it unless they know its value, since the fish itself doesn't give a stat or a buff when eaten. You have to use cooking to cook it into a Nightfin soup and then sell it. This is why this might be a somewhat unknown way to make gold, and if you actually invest your time into making several stacks of these, you might control the entire market and make bank. Generally, this fish is wanted by healers because of mana regen, but it could also be used by casters who struggle with mana usage, or just casters in general, as it might be the best food for both healers and casters. Because it's used by certain classes in raids, it will be on high demand to raiders, and therefore it will also be on higher demand during new raid release. This might be worth considering when farming this, and you might want to sell them during new raid release or during raid hypes. Number 3 is the raw greater sagefish. This can be fished in most level 30 to 40 zones, and it functions as a slightly worse version of the raw Firefin Snapper. The raw greater sagefish is used in crafting the Sagefish Delight, which gives whoever eats it a buff that restores 6 mana per 5 seconds for 15 minutes. So it restores 2 less mana per 5 seconds, but it lasts for 5 minutes longer. This can be a good alternative fish to farm for if the farming spots for raw Firefin Snapper are too crowded, or if the market for raw Firefin Snapper is overpopulated by people trying to sell it. This might also be good to sell whenever new dungeons release, since it's lesser to raw Firefin Snapper in terms of mana regen, but it's still a good item for healers and casters. Some people might not want to cash out on the best food out there for a dungeon run, but would drop a couple of gold for some stacks of decent food or drinks. Basically, it's a decent food buff, but not the best, but will sell to people who can't afford or don't want to cash out on the best food out there. Number 4 is the oily Blacksmith. This is commonly fished in Darkshore, Ashara, Stranglethorn Vale and Moonglade, plus a ton of other zones like Tanaris and Wetlands being the two most popular zones to farm for it. This is used to make Blacksmith oil, which again is used by alchemists to make potions like Swim Speed Potion and Free Action Potion, making it a popular fish all throughout Classic. This fish will especially be on high demand for PvP players because of Free Action Potion, so it will probably have a higher demand on PvP servers. It will also sell to alts and just people doing stuff in the open world because of the swimming speed potions. Number 5 is the Firefin Snapper. This one is used by alchemists to make fire oil, which is further used to make elixir of firepower and fire protection potions. This can be caught in Stranglethorn Vale, Tanaris, Darkshore, Dustwallow Marsh, Wetlands and so on. This could be a great fish to fish for at the beginning of Classic, while fire protection potions are on high demand. This fish will especially be relevant during the first phase because of Molten Core and fire protection potions being on high demand because of that raid. Number 6 is the DV8 Fish. This is a fish that you can only fish up in the Barrens or Veiling Caverns. It's an ingredient in 2 crafts, Savory Deviate Delight and Elixir of Giant Growth, both of which are used for visual effects, though Elixir of Giant Growth also gives strength and might be sought after by warriors and paladins, or even any melee level 19 twinks. It is important to note that because of this fish only being fished up in the Barrens and Veiling Caverns, the price for both Deviate Fish, Savory Deviate Delight and Elixir of Giant Growth will be way higher on Alliance than on Horde, and if you're playing a Horde it might be worth it to try to sell this in the neutral auction house in Stranglethorn Vale, as it will sell for more there. The recipe for Savory Deviate Delight also drops in the Barrens with a very low drop chance from any mob there. This might result in a lot of recipes on the Horde side and very few on the Alliance side, so if you get a recipe or two, try selling them on the neutral auction house. There might even be an opportunity to buy the recipe on the regular auction house if you're Horde, and reposting it on the neutral auction house for way higher and make gold that way. Number 7 is the Stonescale Eel. This is probably the most popular and the most profitable fish in Classic, but it might also be the one with the highest supply because of its popularity, so make sure you don't only target this item because you might have some competition selling this. This item is used by alchemists to make Stonescale oil, which is also used by alchemists to make Elixir of Superior Defense, Greatest Stone Shield Potion, Flask of Petrification, and most of all, Flask of the Titans, making this a very high demand material. Basically, there will always be a demand for this fish on the market, but because it is pretty much the only fish used in high level flasks and potions, it's also the most popular one to farm. This will result in 2 things: overpopulated fishing areas making it more difficult to farm, and overpopulated markets making it more difficult to sell. Basically, if you want to sell this fish and there's a high supply for it, prepare to visit your auction house every 30 minutes to undercut people who undercut you. The most popular area to fish for this is in Tanaris, however it can also be fished up in Swamp of Sorrows and Blasted Lands and a few other zones, so if Tanaris is overpopulated with fishermen, go somewhere else. The way to fish for this is running up and down the coast looking for Stonescale Eel pools. If you can't find any, fish the nearest Blacksmith pool, and continue your way up and down the coast looking for more pools. Another item you can make bank on is the Rumsey Rum Black Label, an item that increases your stamina by 15. This item is really wanted by tanks and most of all level 19 twinks, because it increases their HP by a lot. This item can be fished up from wreckages and pools, and it can help you give additional gold per hour when fishing other fish, just by fishing this up randomly from pools nearby. Other goodies you might find while fishing is junk boxes. Let's look at an example of this, called Mithril Bound Trunk. This drops various materials like Bolt of Mage Weave, Thick Leather, Bolt of Rune Cloth, Rugged Leather, Mana and Healing Potions, Journeyman Backpacks, Aquamarines and Star Rubies. It will also drop occasional uncommon armor and weapons, which you can either vendor or disenchant. Personally, I would recommend disenchanting these, since level 40 plus armor and weapons will drop essences and dust used in many high tier enchants, and will have a pretty high price due to people enchanting their gear whenever they get new gear and people changing their gear quite often. This can actually make you rich if you have the route all figured out and you can farm it by yourself without competition. If we look at most of these ways of making gold with fishing, you'll notice that it's usually used as ingredients within other professions, most commonly cooking and alchemy, plus enchanting if you want to farm the junk boxes and trunks. Luckily, you can have all of these professions on the same character, since fishing and cooking doesn't take up any crafting or gathering profession slots. So you can have cooking, fishing, alchemy and enchanting on the same character. That being said, for self-sufficiency, I would probably have cooking, fishing, alchemy and herbalism on my first character and have enchanting on an alt, since items can be disenchanted from level 1. It is entirely possible to make gold with fishing without using any other profession by selling the raw fish on the auction house, but you'll obviously make more gold if you craft the items yourself. Fishing is also such an interesting profession because of items like winter squid, which you can only catch during certain times of the year, and therefore it could be profitable to fish a lot during winter and keep the winter squid and sell it during summer. Of course, this depends on how many people use the same tactic and if the winter squid would actually function the same way in Classic like it did in Vanilla. Fishing is also such a vital profession for raiders, since it's used in both flasks and food, so the price of fish might fluctuate a lot and skyrocket during new raid releases, allowing flipping options for those interested in that. Alright, so there you have it, 7 different types of fish to make some gold, alternative to the regular ways of making gold. Another great part of fishing is that you can start making tons of gold even at low level, because you can fish Stonescale Eel as low as level 10. However, if you're on a PvP server, you'll probably get killed by the enemy faction if you do so. Fish like Stonescale Eel could go as high as 20 to 30 gold per stack, and fish like DV8 Fish can go as high as 15 gold per stack. But obviously this all depends on supply versus demand, so private server prices can't really be compared to Classic. So, I hope this information helped, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. I will make more guides similar to this one covering gold making with different professions, so if this is something you're interested in, feel free to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Thank you so much for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was useful. If you did like the video, please take the time to slap a like on it, and if you want to interact with me outside of YouTube, I will leave a link to my Discord server in the description. And with that being said, I'll see you in the next video.